know that when I'm paper crafting with honest to goodness paper, I tear just about everything. I love the texture and the look of torn paper on my projects. Digitally, though, it's a technique that can be hard to create and get a realistic look. There are a lot of tools and actions out there to try and help the digital scrapbooker make good tears, but a lot of them leave realism to be desired. I really like my digital pages to look realistic. I love real textures and real flowers and real elements. And so I've noticed that a lot of the torn pieces that are on the market just don't cut the mustard when it comes to looking realistic. Well, there's actually a really easy way to make torn elements, and I'm going to show you the secret to this today in our tutorial. So to start with, here I have a journaling element that I've created that I want to tear out. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to copy it into a new blank document that I have hiding behind back here, and I'm just dragging the layer and I'm going to hold down my shift key as I drag to put it right in the middle. And I'm putting this in a larger document so that I can see the edges a little better. So we'll zoom in here a little bit so that we can see what we're doing. Now I'm going to grab my eraser tool, and I want my eraser to be a grunge brush. Grunge brushes are really the staple of the designer toolkit. If you don't have a good set, go get one. There are a lot of free ones out there that you can download. If you want to spend some money on a good quality product, I highly recommend Amanda Rockwell's brushes. She has some great grunge brushes that, since I've purchased, I go to almost exclusively for my grungy projects. So I'm going to grab a brush here and I'm going to make it a lot smaller. That's one of the great things about Amanda Rockwell's brushes, is that they're huge. So when you're making 12 by 12 papers, they're perfect. So I'm just going to knock it down to a smaller pixel size. I have 50 here that I know will work well with my journaling element. And now I'm going to add those brush dynamics that we use a lot in these tutorials. I'm going to take my shape dynamics, I'm moving the size jitter to 100%, the angle jitter to 100%, the roundness jitter to about 70%. I don't want it to warp my brush too terribly, so I don't put it all the way up to 100, but I do want it to give it some extra shape. And then the flip X and flip Y jitter boxes are checked. And that's all I need to do for my shape dynamics. I'm going to close this, and now I'm just going to take off the corners of my journaling tag here, or the edges of my tag, and I'm just going to draw a line while I'm holding down the shift key. Holding down the shift key on my keyboard while I draw my line, make sure that my line is straight. For some elements you may want to have more jaggedy lines. This one I actually want it to be kind of square. So I'm going to hold down that key, but it's up to you whether or not you want to do it. And I'm just going to drag it across. And there you can see where it's erased a line. Now I'm going to do it again because I know that it didn't quite get all of it and I don't want any little strays hanging on. So I'm just going to go right back over where I've erased. And now I'm going to do it all along the sides as well. Make sure I get everyone twice. There you go. And now you can see the basis of my torn edges here. I just need to get rid of these extra pieces. So I'm grabbing my rectangular lasso tool, and I'm just going to select these edge bits, and I have add to selection checked up here, so I can just do it all at once and grab the parts that I want, and it'll make my selection. And I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard. And there you go. There's the basis of my torn tag. It's just so easy to erase those edges with a grunge brush and get some lovely texture in there. But now paper has depth to it, so I could leave it like that, but it's not going to be quite realistic because it doesn't have that depth. So on a layer below my tag, I'm going to select a paintbrush, and I'm actually using that same grunge brush that I chose before, knocked the size down. I'm going to add in those same shape dynamics that I used on the eraser, and I'm going to pick a light cream color. You really don't want white because white doesn't show up very well. It doesn't grab texture very well, and most papers aren't actually true white. So I usually grab a creamy color somewhere in the oranges or the yellows on your color scale, but in a little bit from the actual true white. And now I'm just going to do the same thing I did before, except for instead of taking away, I'm painting a layer of white underneath my tag, just at the edges. And again, I'm going to go over each line twice. I'm holding down that shift key so that my lines are nice and straight. And I just want a little bit of white peeking out along the edges of my torn tag. Now you can't see the white real well because it's on a transparent background, so what I'm going to do is just add a new layer and position it underneath and fill it with a darker color so that you can see what I've done there. Now this looks pretty good, but it's not quite there yet. All paper has texture. Even if it's smooth paper, it has texture. So let's add some texture to our tear. And to do that, it's so simple. Go to Filter, Texture, and then Texturizer. Now, for the texturizer, this is way off my screen, so I'll try and move it so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm just picking a sandstone texture, and the default settings for this are perfect. You don't need to change a thing, so just click OK. And now it's just going to add a tiny bit of texture to that bottom layer of our tear. Now I'm going to go up to our top layer and add just a tiny bit of a drop shadow. I'm going to set my opacity to 40, my distance to 0, and my size to 2. And it just adds the tiniest bit of dimension to make that top paper look like it's actually sitting on top of the paper underneath. And that is all there is to it. That's all you need to do to create realistic tears on your scrapbooking papers. Have fun with this technique and happy creating.